When I was 12 years old, I actually lived in Fort Lee, Virginia, and one day I came home from school and my mother said, "We're leaving." I didn't know what was going on. Obviously, her and my father were splitting up. So me, my mother, and my two brothers got on a bus, drove from Fort Lee, Virginia to Harlem, and it was just night and day. I just never thought at that point that, I never even knew people didn't have heat or hot water. I mean, I took that for granted. I took, going to school and trying to be a good student, I took that for granted. But I didn't even understand that people could have so much, they could be trapped in such a situation for so long that it was so violent and so desperate. And yet, my mother made so many sacrifices for me and my brothers. I watched her work any job she could find. I even had to work. I've been working since I'm 12, 13 years old, straight, nonstop. We came to New York penniless. We had zero. Thank you. I'm trying. We had nothing. But we were lucky enough to not have the welfare mentality. I never thought for a second. My mother, we got a little bit of assistance when we got there. She immediately found work. The point is, we are at a point now where family, adults have to consider, do we want to sacrifice for our kids, or do we want to buy into this notion that the government can spend money, unlimited money, to save us near term? My mother was a warrior. She grew up in Alabama. She understood hard work and self-sacrifice. And here's the irony of it all. Even though I lived there, I never felt poor one day in my life, because I always saw a certain determination in my mother's eyes. And I got to tell you, other tea parties I've spoken to, people have stopped me, and they've asked me things like, is there any hope? Is there any way to fight back? Certainly early last year, people really weren't sure. But I think we're feeling more and more like maybe there is hope if we continue to fight back. But you must never lose your passion, even under the incredible assault that the tea parties are under. When Nancy Pelosi and her media elites couldn't sweep the tea parties under the rug, they thought they found another way to destroy the tea parties. The process that they're using is pretty interesting. They're actually trying to take the biggest assets of the Tea Party and make them liabilities. Number one, your passion, which can be expressed by the media as threatening and hostile. Number two, the lack of a central leader, which means that they don't have a key person to deframe. Instead, that means that each person in this crowd must endure character assassination. Every person in this crowd must be called a racist. Every person in this crowd must be portrayed as bloodthirsty separatists. Every person in this crowd must be portrayed as dummies, backwoods hicks that are just too dumb to understand how reckless spending is a brilliant economic approach. Well, I'm here today to set the record straight and remind the world why the natural instincts of the people in this crowd are in keeping with the natural instincts of the Founding Fathers. On March 23rd, 1775, Patrick Henry spoke at the Virginia Convention. Among other things, this is what he said: "It is natural to man to indulge in the illusion of hope. We are apt to shut our eyes against a painful truth and listen to the song of that siren till she transforms us into beasts. It is this part of wise men engaged in a great and arduous struggle for liberty. Are we supposed to be the number of those who, having eyes, see not, having ears, hear not? the things which so nearly concern their temporal salvation. For my part, whatever anguish or spirit it might cost, I am willing to know the whole truth, to know the worst, and to provide for it. That's the spirit that I feel here. The spirit of Patrick Henry. We cannot close our eyes. We cannot wait for government to fly in and save us. This is not how America became the greatest nation ever to grace the face of the earth. In my mind, we can't pretend that mounting fiscal deficits and runaway debt will not come crashing down on our heads. In my mind, I can't see how the vilification of oil companies or insurance companies isn't just the first step in the vilification of profits and capitalism and even hard work. I have eyes, and I see where America is being lured into a less competitive country. I have ears, and I don't hear the president thank God. I don't hear the president thank the American people or their resolve. Every economic report that comes out, me and my administration did this and did that. Just once, say thank you, God. Just once, say thank you, America. Just once. Just once. Now, I know we have become a softer nation. So the prospects of a soft landing seem very appealing to a lot of people. But an economic crisis that would have eventually corrected itself has been used now to hijack us into a country that we don't want to be. So now is the time to follow Patrick Henry's words. Now is the time for wise men and women that believe in this nation to engage in a great and arduous struggle to save it. And in my mind, the men and women here are such patriots. I'm standing in front of thousands of patriots right now. You know, the media likes to show the yelling and some of the more controversial signs, but they never really write about the true concerns of people at tea parties. The media never pulls out a grandmother from the crowd and sits down and says, what are you really worried about? What are your true feelings? They don't get it. They don't want to get it. I think they get it, but they're afraid. They're afraid to let the truth out. You know, from time to time, they'll put on a soundbite about big government spending and wild debt and things like that. But obviously, this is a lot deeper than that. From time to time, they'll say, well, maybe it's about the right to bear arms or the immigration struggle or immigration control. And then even when they write about that, of course, they write it in a manner that deliberately tries to make Tea Party members seem like heartless and unaware people. And yet, everyone in this crowd is aware of the depths and the current risk that we face. You understand instinctively the nation is not only on the wrong path, but a dangerously wrong path. The people in this crowd have connected the dots, and you see the future of bankruptcy and despair. It's a lot more than debt. You know, the title of that comic book I threw away was called Two Americas. I can tell you something about that. When I was growing up in Harlem, I saw two Americas. I saw people that resisted government handouts and those that not only took them, but came to believe that those handouts were a birthright. I saw many parents get up early in the morning to go to jobs that were at home watching TV.